I don't have to work hard to make more money. Working hard is for suckers.
Welcome to The Defense Never Rests with Morgan and Akins, your monthly dose of uncommon sense about all things legal and some that are not.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Defense Never Rests. I'm your host, Trisha Baxter. Joining me is my co-host, Talar Herculean Corsi. Talar, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing, Trish?
I'm good. So good to see your face.
It's
I'm
good to
excited.
see yours too.
I'm excited about our episode today because it's about money and wealth. Who doesn't love to talk about money and wealth?
That's funny because, I grew up where it was dirty.
Yeah.
You didn't talk about that. It was shameful, you know? How was yours?
Same
Was it
way.
okay?
It wasn't that it wasn't shameful. It's not like my mother said, don't talk about that. We just didn't talk about it. It wasn't like it just building wealth and a focus on money just wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think it's important. And I think, as I've gotten older, I realized it's important to have frank conversations about money, especially to the younger generation, especially to my daughter. I want her to understand the importance of wealth and how she can get there and what she needs to do to protect herself. So I think it's important to have the conversations. I don't ever remember having them because I'm not sure my mother ever had them. My mother was raised, in the 50s and 60s when women were there to get married. Like they weren't really there, at least in her family. They weren't there really to have a career. They were to get married, and men took care of that. So, but I think obviously it's a little bit different. I'm going to say obviously. I think obviously it's different now. I hope it's different now. But so that's what our episode is today. It's talking money, building wealth. And we have an awesome, awesome guest. Her name is Natalie Gold. She is a celebrity wealth attorney. She runs her own firm. And she really is talking about how to build wealth, protect your assets, develop an estate plan to make sure that you're set up for life and after. So I can't wait to talk to her. So let's bring her on. Well, welcome, Natalie Gold. Hey, how are you?
Hey, Trisha. Hey, Talar. So great to be with you. Lovely, beautiful ladies today. I cannot wait. And thank you, Trisha, for having me on.
Well, I'm so happy you said yes because you're here to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is money. And I love that, one of your missions in life really is to help women with money. And that's not what this today's podcast is about. It's not just about women. The stuff, the insights that you have and the advice that you give really is very broad, but I love that you have that mission. More women should be, let's just talk money. So let's before we get into it, give us some of your backstory and how you got to where you are right now.
So I often have the story start at 15 years old. And on that glorious day, August 20th, 2004, I started my life as a regular 15-year-old. Very ambitious, very hardworking, going to an amazing high school, very competitive. And it was a summer break, and I was working in an ISIS shop in Queens, where I grew up, a few miles from home. And I decided to walk home that day with a envelope filled with $120 in cash that I had just gotten for working $6 an hour. Thank God my hourly rate has gone way up since then.
Thank God.
Thank God. And at the corner of Jewel Avenue and Utopia Parkway in Queens, 2 blocks away from my house, across the street from a park where children play, I was crossing the street and never made it across. Two guys were racing their cars from light to light, and one hit me at, as would later be told to me, 60 miles an hour and did not touch a brake.
Wow.
So yeah. And you start your life, I mean, at 15 years old, you think you know everything, you know nothing. But you're at that age and you get this gift, which is the opportunity to see life as a beautiful gift. And what are you going to do with it? And at 15 years old, to have it almost taken from you. And in fact, having the doctor say, we don't know how you survived and you're going to have to sit 10th grade out. And I said, over my dead body. I go to a very competitive school. I'm going there. And 2 weeks later, I was there on the first day of school in a wheelchair. So to go through that and also have to defy, what do people think about me? Now I'm the girl in the wheelchair. At that age, looking back, it was the biggest gift given to me in this world is the ability to see from those glasses, from those rose-colored glasses of co-creation and what's possible when we put our mind to it. And from there, I did college in 2 years, law school in 2.5, graduated debt-free and I come from an immigrant family. I didn't know anything. It's not like my parents were writing my essays. I was writing their essays. I'm reviewing and Talara's laughing because I'm sure it's very similar for you, reviewing our parents' kind of letters. English was not their first language. And I was out to bring justice to the world. At 15, I believe I became a lawyer. It took until 23 to actually get the certification. But I knew that I was going to bring change to the world. And I thought that was going to be in a courtroom because I'm like, I am the female incarceration of Perry Mason, watch out world. And then I realized I'd be limited by a court schedule and by motion BS and only working one client at a time. So then I thought, what area can I really focus on that touches everybody and that I could truly impact? And that's wealth. Here I am.
I love that. Well, before we move on from your story. So you are a celebrity wealth attorney. How long have you been doing it? And what kind of things are included in the kind of practice that you're involved with?
So I'm an estate attorney. I do wills and trusts. The branding for whoever old guy made up estate attorney, what the hell were you thinking? Look at life insurance. They don't call it death insurance, but it's life insurance. Same thing with estate planning. Why do 64% of people die without a will? Why do 9 out of 10 women survive their spouse and know nothing about money and where everything is? Because no one wants to think about death. So if we flip it to wealth, if we flip it to life and legacy planning, as I like to call it, now it's an empowering conversation. How do I live a life I'm proud of? How do I leave a legacy of love? As opposed to what happens when I die. Very different conversation.
I've heard you talk before about money being a mindset. What do you mean by that?
It's not our fault. We have been robbed of an opportunity to really see who we are as people. We go into a system called education. And from 5 years old and maybe younger, right? If you're in the educational system before then, you are taught what looks like reading, writing, and arithmetic. There is history on the books that shows that when the assembly line culture took over in the United States, the Industrial Revolution, they went into the schools to implement the same thing in our curriculum, which is still the curriculum we follow. So we're taught, be the good little girls and boys, but especially be the good little girls and follow what is being taught to you. Don't speak out of line. Don't call out. Don't be too aggressive. And you're going to learn reading, writing, and arithmetic. Really what we're learning is sit down, shut up, and don't ask questions. Why? Because if there was a million different people on the assembly line asking, maybe I should screw the screw like this, and would this be more innovative, we would never have the cars be able to be mass produced. So we're taught from a young age not to ask, not to think bigger. Thereby, we go get jobs and no one is teaching. So I went to St. John's Law and I literally got the best grade ever given in negotiation at St. John's, then became the first ever regional champ in negotiation and mediation, then took teams, taught it afterwards, and took many teams through coaching on it. I was one of 25 people in a negotiation class in law school. Where are these classes being given in high school? Where are the basic financials being given? Nowhere. No, not high school, not college, and very little in law school, if you're lucky enough to go that way, or an MBA program. So we're being taught to get a job. Well, a job, which used to be thought of as safe, I don't see it as safe. Because tomorrow, the boss could say, COVID, no money, bye. I was never about that. So for me, the first reason that people don't really understand wealth is because they think that they have to comply to this roadmap that's been given to us of be a worker bee in order to make it. And then you're always capped. So it's really funny, Trisha, because the first time I was in working at a firm, my boss said to me, "You're leaving at 6 o'clock, and the other associates are leaving way later." And I thought, I am clearly super fast in everything I do, right? I mean, like, I like things done yesterday. So if I'm very doing the performance and getting it done early, why do I have to stick around? What's extra in it for me to grow? There is no growth there. And then I took it. I mean, I literally started my own firm on Park Avenue at 24 years old, like a crazy person, which maybe I was. You know what? Like, you have to be a little bit crazy to think you can change the world, right? Steve Jobs said that. And it's okay, because if crazy means not conforming to the BS rules that were written by men for men in the Industrial Revolution, call me crazy, baby.
I love that you're crazy. We need a little more crazy. Well, I'll say, like, I think I'm with you. I think wealth is a mindset. I will tell you, and I did not get that till the age of 45 when it smacked me in the face. Like, I was raised to get a job. I mean, I went to law school, but I went to law school with the goal of getting a job after law school and working for a salary and working for bonuses. So my internal question through the first 20 years of my career was, how can I get that bonus? How can I get a raise? Those were the wrong questions to ask. And it was at 45 that I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki's book, and I slapped me in the face. And I was like, and he has the same point. It's our education system is failing people and teaching them how to build wealth. And it is really all about how, if you want to build wealth, maybe you don't, and you want to get a job and work, that's great. That's probably not, this episode's probably not for you. If you want to build wealth, and this episode's for you, because that book and what you're saying is very much like, you don't build wealth by earning a salary. You have to have a completely different mindset. And we're going to talk about some of that today, but I love that. But I was 45 when I got that. So imagine if I had seen that as early and as young as you, at early 20s, where I'd be at. And I don't have any regrets. Like, this isn't looking back and let me regret my life. I love where I'm at. But I think about, well, I learned a lesson from that. So I'm teaching my daughter differently, you know. So I'm with you. And can you talk about the difference between earning, kind of that concept, earning money versus building wealth? They may overlap a little bit, but they're very different.
Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. And here's the thing. If we want to be wealthy, we have to start thinking that we are worthy of wealth. We are worthy of being the creators, the business makers, the executives, because otherwise we get down the rabbit hole. So what's the difference between earning money and creating wealth? Earning money is a really easy thing to do. It's easy to clock in, clock out, and get a paycheck. And honestly, it's even easier when you take the leap into entrepreneurship to make money, and way bigger money. But we gotta love that money. We gotta respect that money, and we gotta understand anything that comes too easily and too fast is taken away like this. This is why lottery winners lose, why big inheritance, typically, that we say t-shirts to t-shirts in 3 generations. You can be 100 millionaire, you worked your ass off. By the time your grandkids get it, back to zero. Why?
It's like the MC Hammers of the world, the sports players that earn tens of $1 million and then they're broke 10 years later. Sorry.
Because here's the thing, Trisha, people don't realize they go get a job at a law firm. They go get a job as a doctor. They go get a job, they're an amazing athlete. They become an NBA or NFL professional, or, they're playing football, whatever. Let's say you're one of the lucky few and you're making a 6-figure salary as your first opportunity. Very lucky, very blessed, and also typically a lot of hard work, whether that be on the playing field, whether that be in schools and graduate degrees, etc. What people don't realize is whatever that dollar is, let's make it 100,000 just for ease of math. You get about 60 of that after taxes. You're not playing with 100, you're playing with 60. Now, before COVID, you were also likely living in a more expensive place. because you had to commute back and forth to work. So, what was your cost of living? Don't even get me started on the amount of student loan debt many of those people had, which is basically like a second mortgage. So, by the time you looked at it, all these people who thought that they were doing the American dream actually are in debt and racking it up on their credit cards in order to be able to make to the next month. Earning money is easy. Creating wealth is hard. Why? I had this conversation with a friend yesterday. He's a TV producer, has done extremely well. He was telling me, Natalie, I used to buy Bentleys. I used to show off that I'm doing so well. And then you look at the bank account and you have all these things, but you have nothing to show for it. And to me, it's what is my living legacy? Earning money is not the hard part. It's the discipline of understanding what goes into the wealth and how do I grow it without my active intervention. You want your money to be working for you. They say that the eighth wonder of the world is compound interest. A person much smarter than me said it, Albert Einstein, right? Because when you have your money working for you, especially from a young age, I mean, the first thing I did with my young girls who are 2 years old and not even one is we funded a 529. Why? Because the market will do what it does. And over the course of 18 years, it's going to go up. So now you've paid for college because of one gift made at the age of 1 year old. That's the power of letting it ride and compounding interest. So it's also a mindset, right? I don't have to work hard to make more money. Working hard is for suckers.
I love that. And before we move on from the mindset stuff, because I do want to get into some nitty gritty on the how do you build the wealth. But I was raised by a single mom, probably lower middle class, and she took a job to earn that paycheck, and she hated it. And I saw it when she would come home. She hated it, and the stress that she brought into the house. And she always taught me, you can do whatever you want, you can be whatever you want, because she wasn't, right? And she didn't live her potential from a career perspective. So she always taught me that. And I carry that with me to this day. But it was, when I had that epiphany at 45, I had to take off the hat of, I have a ceiling as far as how much I can earn. I have a ceiling. So I had to take that hat off and let's try on for size the hat of, let me dream about how much money I could earn. Let me think bigger than I ever have thought before. And I think that's really important for people. If you're feeling stuck and in debt, just do some, as Tim Ferriss would say, dreamlining, and think about and dream about where you want to be and try that mindset on and see how it feels. So I love that.
But I love that too, Trisha. I love Tim Ferriss. And even in law school, I was reading The 4-Hour Workweek. And you know what? The truth is, when we really refine, like what makes me money, we spend a lot of time doing stuff that does nothing for us. In fact, we waste money. I mean, I look even at my COVID savings. My favorite things to do were get my hair done, nails done, massage, coffee out with friends, dinners out. I can't do any of it right now. So really, when we see, and that is, I think, a big point. We have to have our dream in line. We have to understand what is the end and work backwards from it. And we also have to, because not everyone wants to be a multi-millionaire business owner, because it's hard work. No one just says, I dub thee, Trisha and Talar, queens of the universe, and now you have all the money and you can be in the Caribbean enjoying your life, okay? When you build a company like that, it is your life. Not everyone has to have that dream, but I think you have to be very clear on what that dream is, and also do the things that make sense. If you want to be a DA, God bless you, you're doing amazing work in the world. Maybe you don't have to go to the law school that's going to cost you $80,000 a year. Because if you're going to make $50,000 a year, do the math first. We're smart people. We don't use our brains. Use your brain and think about what is the end goal. And then from there, take an inventory on where you actually are. Take a good hard look in the mirror and say, what am I actually making? What do I actually spend? And we look, when I first started making great money, when I had my own law firm at 25, 24, 25 years old, at 25, I really started making the money. I was spending like a crazy psycho because I came from an immigrant family. So for me, it wasn't enough to just have the Chanel bag. I bought the Chanel for my mom. I bought the Gucci for my grandma. I bought, and then I'm like, what do I have to show for all the hard work I've done? And not just that, but when I talk about discipline, it's so easy to mess up on thinking that your CPA took care of it and a tax bill is not paid. It's so easy to let your insurance that you didn't realize, like when you're running at 1,000 miles an hour, when it's going to lapse, and make sure it doesn't, that can bite you in the butt. It's these little things that we don't even think about. Most people, when they come into me to do a plan and we take an inventory, I'm like, okay, what do you have? Oh my God, I didn't realize I had this much money. They don't even know what they have, because sex and money are like the two taboo subjects. But guess what? The money is what's going to define your entire foundation. And don't even get me started on having sex with the wrong people, because what that can do to you, okay? So
We'll have to save our sex episode for another episode. I've never done a sex episode. I don't know if I could. Can I do that? My brand is not that, but we'll see. Who knows? Well, let's back up for a second. I love that advice. Starting with a self audit of sorts, which is really taking a good, hard, honest look at where you are and where you spend. If you're in the boat of, I don't have any extra money, I imagine if you did a self audit, you'd find out why. My husband do it. We do it constantly, probably too much, but we definitely do it at the end of the year, where we run our own personal P&L, if you will. And you get to see that lump sum of, I spent how much in groceries? I said, I did what? Like, you see that. And then you're like, and then when you do it long enough, you can compare it year to year. You can see maybe, if you put some effort into, maybe I won't eat out as much, or maybe I won't get that coffee every morning, or like we cut cable, not because of cost, just because
it's smart.
Yeah, it's just lots of noise. But, so it's like, you can start to see, where can I cut? There's only so much that you can do to reduce expenses, but you should look at that. You should look and see where do I want to put the money. And a self audit is so important. What advice do you have for people that have never done that?
What are you waiting for? It's just like, if you want to get healthy physically, you have to take a look at where you're at. And if you're eating 3 cheeseburgers a day and drinking a milkshake, guess what? You have to look at that. And you have to be honest with yourself. Like, what am I doing? No one is a victim here. This victim mentality BS that we're also taught, like, oh, woe is me, forget that, cut that out. You want to be wealthy, you have to take accountability for yourself. And that starts with, what am I actually doing day in, day out? You want to see why you're not being successful? Look at your calendar. Who's in it? Who are the people who you're actually spending time to be with? Audit everything, your time most importantly. Because look, okay, can I tell you, yeah, you save $10 at Chase by having a different bank account and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. But forget the $10. Think about the 10 grand you could be making in addition if you just change your mindset. Think about the $1 million business you could be starting if you surrounded yourself with better people. And it's easy to get sucked into this, Trisha. I gotta tell you, when I first became, at 24 years old, super blonde, super skinny, and everyone wanted a piece of me, and I'm thinking, oh my God, they love me so much, and I'm the best thing ever. People are not stupid. They see the opportunity. And a lot of people, especially if they haven't made it yet, want to leech on others. You gotta be smart. And sometimes, look, it's tough. And I've had a lot of acquaintances. It's very easy for me to walk into a room and be BFF with everyone right away. I know how to do that. But true, friendships that I can trust these people, and also at my age that are at the same level, they're almost non-existent. because a lot of people don't want to think like this. It's easier to do what everyone else does. But here's the thing, 80% of people are born broke and die broke. So if we're looking at what does our neighbor do, it likely will end up have us end up in the poorhouse. And here's the thing too. Everyone is saying, they teach you, put into your IRA, Social Security is going to take care of you. Let me tell you a little something about Social Security, okay? When you go to the nursing home or need a home care live-in aid, which God willing, we all get to that age where we're living beyond that, and we're living longer, but not necessarily better. Today in 2020, it's 20 grand plus in places like New York, LA, San Francisco to have 24/7 care at home. Do you know that if you're applying for Medicaid, let's say, which is something a lot of lawyers do, we get people on Medicaid and we're able, let's say they have a house and an IRA, they still qualify. Every single cent from Social Security, except for $50, goes to pay Medicaid. So it's like the government workers going next door and saying, here, Bob, here's the check this month. Wake up, people. You need to protect yourselves. Here's how you do it, okay? Basics. Will, power of attorney, healthcare proxy, and the living trust. Live in trust. If you don't have a trust, you got to really think about why. Probably you don't know what the hell a trust is. Not your fault. Nobody ever told you. A trust is a legal fiction. It is a container through which you put things into, but it's a magical container because depending on what's written in this container, you can save millions in taxes. You can save long-term care costs to the tune of $20,000 a month. You can go seamlessly to your kids, a living legacy, instead of having the court involved. And by the way, in places like California and New York, you can thank me because the probate process will typically cost 25 grand or more, depending on how much wealth you have, and months and years of your beneficiaries' lives. It sucks. Just take care of it. Just it's really easy. You go to a qualified person and they make it happen for you. And it's not that expensive.
So let me just back you up though. A will, a power of attorney, a living trust. Is that what you said?
Yep.
Was there a fourth one?
Healthcare proxy.
Okay. I'm writing this down.
Those are the four cornerstones. Those are the four pillars of your house. They hold up your financial house.
And talk briefly the importance of each one.
Sure. Here's what they are. Healthcare proxy, power of attorney do the same thing in different venues. God forbid I'm in an accident. God forbid I get dementia and I cannot take care of either my health or my finances. Who will do it for me? Because I promise you, no one is going to care if you're in a hospital bed that you can't pay your bills. They still have to be paid. Okay? So we need those two things taken care of. Without those two things get really dicey. You have to go through a conservatorship, a guardianship, depending on the state, they call it different things. That costs a lot of money and time. And remember, it's not like you have all the time in the world. At this point, you're in a position of weakness because heaven forbid something happens to you. You need those documents. A will. What's a will do? A will says, dear judge, I know you can't hear me right now because I'm 6 feet under, baby. But here is who I'd want to get my stuff when I'm no longer here. That process takes 6 months to a year if you're lucky, depending on the state. And God forbid you have two kids who maybe don't love each other that much. Good luck. A living trust allows you to do the same thing in the will, except for no dear judge. Instead, dear loves of my life, my children, I love you so much that I didn't want you to think about the legal nonsense when I'm no longer here. I want you to grieve me. I want you to remember me. And I want you to love me. Here's the money. Have fun.
So, Natalie, hi.
Hi.
Thanks for showing up today. It's been a joy.
If not, I knew Trisha was going to send the guard out for me. Are you kidding? Come on.
Yeah, she can be pretty ruthless. I know her people. So I have so many questions for you. The first one was going to be, so if you have a trust, I did not like wills and trusts in school. I took it, but I didn't enjoy
either.
it. I'm glad that there's people like you that
Me too.
do enjoy it. So I did my estate planning a few years ago, and I'm pretty sure I have a will and a trust. Mm-hmm. So if you have a trust, do you still need a will?
Yes. And we do that basically as a matter of course. Why? It's typically called a pour over will. Basically, like pour it over into another glass. It's to say, if I forgot to fund something, meaning to put it in the container, do so, surrogates court. It's a shorter process and it goes everything into the trust. Now, here's the deal, ladies. As you know, just because we have a beautiful cup doesn't mean there's any coffee in it.
Mm.
We have to put the coffee in. Same thing with trust. 9 times out of 10, the only thing that's in the trust is the house. And it's only if you bought that, like it's the house you had when you did the planning. If you then upgraded and you didn't put it back in the new house in the trust, you have nothing in your trust. If you didn't go and do the steps that the estate attorney told you to do, which are go to your bank account, get it transferred to the name of the trust, it's not in the trust. So we have to take proactive steps. And I got to tell you, the banks and brokerages, they don't make it easy. And that's why a lot of people die with a trust that they paid $5,000 for, but nothing's in it.
I'm ready for some more free advice. I really enjoy
Sure.
this. Thank you very much, Trish. Yeah, speaking of the banks and brokerage accounts, I did have experience for somebody else where, you know, her spouse had died and there was like this one bank account, not with too much money. I think it was like 15, 20 grand, but they wouldn't budge. They wanted to see a court order. We didn't have it. So anyway, just supporting what you said. Absolutely. Do you have a preference for should you put the name of your bank or brokerage account in the trust or just make it a beneficiary? Is there a difference?
So the easiest way to do it is make the trust a beneficiary. The interesting thing is every bank has their own rules and regs. So you have to make sure the bank is okay with it. Why I like it is because it's cleaner in that you don't have to, like, let's say all your, you know, your monthly expenses come out of that account. You don't have to rechange every account. It's easier. However, you have to check those beneficiary designations. And let me give you ladies 2 examples of when this goes wrong. First of all, there's tens of billions with a B unclaimed funds in this country. That means you don't even know that you're missing money. And imagine we own businesses, we're all working with business people, lots of LLCs, right? Where does the LLC go? Where does that money go? If let's say the wife in a traditional kind of older couple didn't know what the LLC name is, doesn't know where the documents are, the lawyer who did them, he died long ago. What happens? Because if it's not specifically listed, which typically it's not, what do? You don't even know. You don't even know. So here's the deal. I went to a Toastmasters meeting on the Upper West Side a few years ago. And there was this lovely woman, Brenda, and we met there. And we decided to walk home together because we were both on the same path home. And she tells me, Natalie, you won't believe the story. This woman came to me saying, Brenda, will you help me do some work? I need some help with my financial future. Sure. Woman never hired her. Weeks later, dies. Her only daughter came to Brenda and said, Brenda, I know my mom came to you. What do you know, like, can you help me here? I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. Brenda took it upon herself. She's a very lovely woman. She said, sure. They find there's a $2 million life insurance policy. Joy, ding, 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 ding. Fine. Like, if at least you're grieving, you have a little cushion, something. They call the life insurance company. Yeah, you know, Kathy, daughter, you're not the beneficiary listed. What do you mean? My parents were divorced. I'm the only child. Like, who else could be the beneficiary? Finally, the woman on the phone took a little grace on her and said, you know, it's this guy, Bill Jones. Okay. Kathy thinks about who the hell is Bill Jones? It dawns on her and she goes back to Brenda the next day. Brenda, my mom was engaged to someone before she met my dad. They never got married. I think it's him. They Google, they find Bill. Bill, it's Kathy. You might know my mom. She passed away. I'm her only daughter. there was an insurance policy, and by some accident, you're still the beneficiary. You know what he said? She was the love of my life and she broke my heart, and I'm keeping the money. Click.
Of course he said that.
And there's nothing you can do. So
Yeah.
this is what happens. Like, and by the way, banks are amazing at getting your money. They're not so good at giving it back. Truth.
So let's run through that living trust example. Let's go with a house. So you're saying put the house in the name of the living trust, like transfer the deed,
Correct. So
that
yeah.
the trust own my grandfather did this with when he passed away. Beforehand, he put his house in a living trust, which all the siblings were the beneficiary. So it totally passed through. It was brilliant. I never heard of it before. But so you put it before you pass, you put your primary residence, you deed it to the living trust. And then when you pass, the living trust goes to your kids. Is that
whomever you appoint as beneficiaries? Now here's the clincher. You have to have a copy of the living trust, because remember, we all know real estate. No title company is going to allow for a sale if there's a missing link in the chain of title. That trust, they don't have a copy of it when they make the deed part of the trust. So it's our responsibility to hold on to that trust document and know what it says. And here's the other thing, thinking that the lawyer who did it, most of my, I'll call them competitors, I don't think I have any, but most of the people who do the same thing I do, or in the same world, are 50 years my senior and men. They don't necessarily live through to see what will happen on the other side. And all their files get thrown God knows where. It's a big problem. So you can't be relying on your lawyer that did it for you 30 years ago to still be around. You have to take personal accountability.
Explain the difference though in a will, because most people I would think have wills. If not, they're probably thinking about a will. They're probably not thinking about a living trust. Why not just put in your will, I leave my house to my kids? What's the difference?
Totally should. However, the process is about 5 times as expensive, way longer. I mean, could be years. And that's if you have a happy family. Let's say you two are sisters, but you don't get along. With a will, unlike a private transaction of a trust, I have to notify each of you that mom has died, and you have to give me a waiver saying you're not contesting. So literally, you're waving the flag in the disgruntled air saying, you're not getting as much. You think they're going to sign a waiver?
And Natalie, one of the things that I learned when I went through the process, you can correct me if I'm wrong or if things have changed. But if you have real estate in more than one state, you have to probate in each state if you just have a will, right? Whereas you can avoid it with a trust.
Don't even get me started about multiple states and multiple countries. Today we are a global world. People think, they tell me, I have a very simple estate. Once they say that, I know that it's not simple. and you could have your condo in Israel or India or Switzerland or whatever. You don't have a simple estate anymore. Tell me, where's the body of law that there is none? There's the US and each state in it that you have stuff going on. Then there's the other countries. And there are those rules, those legal fees. And you might not even know. I mean, my dad bought against believe me, I advised against, but who knows? When it's your child telling you, they don't know anything, right? So he bought a piece of property in Romania. How the hell do I know what that deed even says? How the hell do I know who to find? God forbid should that date, but people don't think. And that's also the difference, Trisha, to your point about earning money versus creating wealth. The people who are trust fund babies, it's because their parents were really smart. And they realized that a private transaction, to keep it in the family and not be able to be spent so easily, is a better way to live. You can live through a trust. And and if it's a specific kind, not a plain vanilla living trust like we're talking about, but an asset protection trust in certain states like Nevada, Wyoming, South Dakota, Ohio, you can be the grantor, meaning the person who establishes the trust, the trustee, the person in charge, and the initial beneficiary, and have it completely asset protected from divorcing spouses, any lawsuits, taxes, if you structure correctly. This is the big kahuna, right? I mean, like, but a lot of estate attorneys, they're like, we don't do asset protection. What the hell do you do then?
Well, so let's back up. So let's assume that people have the basics. They have the will, the power of attorney, the healthcare proxy, living trust, all in place. They have their beneficiaries all set, and they have all the paperwork and the spot they need to have it. That's easily found. Somebody can find it.
Perhaps a life and legacy box.
I have a safe. I tell you, I have a fireproof safe that I keep all my documents in. But yeah, I like yours better.
And Trisha, to your point, I love that you have it there because a lot of people put in their safe deposit box in the bank. You need a court order to open that afterwards. That's a terrible place to keep it. The fireproof safe in the house with the people who are listed as executors and trustees, knowing the combination and where it's at, that's the way.
How often do you have to go back and re-examine those documents? Is there a set time, or should you do it after major life events? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, major life events, marriages, divorces, aging, debt. I mean, there's literally, we can do trusts that protect your entire assets from long-term care costs as long as you make certain look-back periods. And that's for people who are of modest means. Typically, they have like an IRA, maybe a small bank and brokerage account in a house. But that's huge. That's your entire life savings. I definitely every 5 years. And look, in the last 3 years ago, I was a single girl. I'm now married, thank God, with 2 kids. I've moved to 5 different places between New York, Florida, California, now Colorado, next stop Mars, okay? So life changes. I mean, it's not the same. And also, you have some, like, for example, maybe you appointed a guardian in your will for your children if heaven forbid something should happen while they're still minors. And you're seeing how they're acting through COVID. Maybe they're not taking the same level of precautions you are. Do you necessarily want that person taking care of your kids should something happen to you through COVID? It's something to consider.
Yeah, that's, having discussions about who takes care of your kids and putting that in your estate documents are so tough.
You know, Trisha, that's the number one reason young families do not do the planning. 64% of people in America die without a will. 200 million Americans. That's more than voted in this election. Just to give people a frame of reference, 200 million Americans die without a will. Why? Too expensive, too scary, and they don't want to think about who their kid goes, who gets their children in the event of a death prematurely. But here's the deal. You decide, or the judge who doesn't know you, doesn't know up from down, decides. You pick.
When I created my first will, which isn't the current one that I had 2 dogs. I did not have children. But I did include who's going to be taking care of my dogs in my will. It was going to be my very nice pet-friendly boss, Tori Shukin, bless her heart. I don't have the dogs anymore. I do have the child, but that was really important to me. I didn't want to leave it up to, family members to fight over what my husband and I would have wanted. So we decided we'd make those decisions ourselves. And, that's really been the motivation in our estate planning. My brother and I also have real estate and issues together. And whenever we have these conversations, we don't want anybody we leave behind to have any bad blood, any reason for discord because of something we didn't do. So we try to, make all those decisions while we're still around to help them out. Do you have any suggestions in terms of, who is it? Is it the you call them the executor? What's the name of the person who is going to execute your trust after you're gone?
Your trustee.
Your trustee. Do you have any advice or suggestions in terms of who should be your trustee? For example, can it be your lawyer?
It can. Just so you know, when your lawyer acts in that position, they of course will take a fee on the entire, and every state is different. In New York, we have a statutory code of how much we can take depending on how big the estate is or the trust is. In California, we have a very specific code. And by the way, it's great to be an estate attorney in California for those who die with just a will. We can get literally $23,000 on your first million, which is a simple house in Southern California, just so people understand. And then it's 43,000 on 3 million and 63,000 on 5, and it goes up from there. So for people who have very highly appreciated real estate, get a trust. The trustee should be someone you trust implicitly. Often it is in a plain vanilla living trust, which is no tax benefit, no asset protection, simply for, well, asset protection for the children, but not for you, the person establishing it. It's typically going to be husband and wife, or if there's one of them, going to be their sole trustee during their life. In the event of disability or death, then the secondary trustee comes. It's either adult children or siblings that they trust or a professional. The professionals will, of course, always charge a fee. There's an entire sector called, professional fiduciaries that do this for a living for clients. Now, a lot of people, let's say, are divorced, don't have a spouse, and they say, I believe that my siblings will do the right thing by me, but I often tell them, here's what we do. Why don't we put 2 people? So they're always watching what each other is doing. Or 3, and have to make it by a majority. So that way, if it's 1 professional and 2 of your siblings, they're not going to be 3 of them out to get your kids. And here's the deal too. You have to have the conversation with your kids, because those trustees are fiduciaries. They have a duty of care to the beneficiary to do the right thing. If the beneficiary doesn't know that this exists, it leaves a lot of space open for potentially bad actors. Open conversation, empowering around wealth.
So I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Can you make your beneficiary also the trustee of your estate?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And people do it all the time. And a lot of times, if it's young children we're talking about, we even put in provisions in the trust saying, look, at 30 years old, I want her to be her own trustee. Still gets the asset protection. So she marries the wrong guy or the wrong girl, they can't come after that money as long as it's still in that veil of protection of the trust. That's why it's so much better, because if it's just out there in your name, people can take it from you. John Rockefeller said, control everything, own nothing. Why? Trusts. This is what the super wealthy have known forever, that we're just now making accessible to the masses. A trust is not that expensive of a document. You could literally get a trust for a few $100s online. But the magical powers it bestows upon your money cannot be understated.
So do you really think that we should not own anything? That everything should be in a trust?
Yes.
Wow, that's so fascinating. I don't do that.
Except for retirement accounts.
Yeah.
Which would be negatively impacted by being in a trust. And they have their own asset protection on them depending on the state, but many of them do already have those barriers. But look, we work damn hard for our money, ladies. And I know everyone who's going to be watching this works damn hard for theirs too. And one disgruntled client could come after it all. And here's the deal with asset protection trusts. A lot of people are like, do they work? Do they not work? They're called DAPs, Domestic Asset Protection Trust. It was always international. People thought it was offshore planning. The states finally got smart in 1997 in Alaska, first one. They said, holy moly, all this money is going overseas. Let's bring it here. Okay. So these states, there's 19 of them currently that allow for domestic asset protection trusts. Why? Because if you can still live through your trust as your own trustee, have it completely protected, but also no one can get at it, and you can tell a would-be litigant, look, dude, you want to come after me? Knock yourself out. But here's the deal. Everything is protected, and the amount of money you're going to spend on legal fees, you're never going to get back. Because even if you get a judgment in New York, you got to go to Wyoming to now get it enforced. So you have to basically relitigate the case. I'll see you in 20 years, and you're still going to get nothing. Want to settle for pennies on the dollar, or you want to play ball?
So, Natalie, help me understand something. Assets for dummies, if you will. Um, you have referenced trust and then asset protection trust. I was under the impression that trusts protect your assets. Are not all trusts made the same?
Nope. Think about it like this. You go to Baskin Robbins.
Oh, I like Baskin Robbins.
Oh, me too. I miss things in the world, like ice cream, massages, all the good stuff. So
Yeah.
you go to Baskin Robbins, right? In the hopefully post-pandemic world. Or whatever. You go to the new gluten-free frozen yogurt, blah, blah, blah place.
Baskin Robbins. Let's go to Baskin Robbins.
Let's go to Baskin Robbins. All right. We park our car, we go inside. We have a choice. Plain vanilla, strawberry, swirl. Okay, that's the base. Now we have another choice. And by the way, Baskin Robbins has 31 different flavors, I believe, right? Last time I checked. Now you have another choice: cherries, whipped cream, fudge, sprinkles, chocolate, or rainbow. What's your flavor? Same thing with trusts. A plain vanilla living trust is the revocable living trust, or the living trust we speak about. It's what we hear Susie Orman talk about. That is the basics. What does it do? Privacy, seamless transition, no court. That's what it does. Now we go to Baskin Robbins and we're like, holy moly, there's salted caramel and peanut butter cookie dough. Hit me up with that, baby. Now we're talking asset protection trust. Oh, and guess what? You're a super wealthy person, or maybe you're moderately wealthy. And now that Biden has won the election, he's saying that he's going to bring the estate tax exemption from 11.5 million a person to 3.5. That's a big difference in money. Now, it's not the money you have now, because we hope we're not going to be dying right now. It's the money that could grow over the next 50 years. So if we put it in a special kind of trust, well, now that 3 million that grew to 30 is completely estate tax free to our children, because of the steps we took now to have all of the what we call accumulation outside depreciation of the trust outside of your estate. Typically, that came with giving up tremendous control, because you can't have a cake and eat it too. Now, if you're married, there's something called the SLAT, which is becoming the most important trust out there for the wealthy: a spousal lifetime access trust. Your spouse gifts you and your trust the money. You are the trustee and the initial beneficiary. They stop touching the money, okay? But you have all the access and control. And all the appreciation is going outside of your estate, and secure from creditors. It's insane what this has allowed us to do, but it's all about getting the information. Now, if you live in California and Proposition 19 is passing, what used to be in California was there was Proposition 13, where literally no one was selling property because you got grandfathered into the property tax basis that your grandparents had. That will likely be changing for all but your primary residents. That means that there's going to be a lot of money being spent either in property tax or the 50 million that was spent by the real estate lobby to make this happen so that they could be selling more places. But then we're also talking about property tax, income tax, capital gains tax, estate tax. There's a lot of tax, people. So we have to really look at it and look, it's not just for the multimillionaires and billionaires. A lot of hardworking families bought property 30 years ago, and it's worth a tremendous amount right now. So you have to educate yourself on what is coming down the pike and be constantly in a position. I mean, some people are like, I don't live my life by tax rules. And I'm like, you know what? If I can save 50% of my money, which will grow to be millions of dollars because I properly invested for my kids, and it just means I have to move 2 states over, I'm going to do that.
Well, and what I'm hearing a lot through the thread of what you've been saying is, all right, we do need to earn money. It's not that you need to, but if you want to, it's great. You earn your money, but that's not enough. You have to look at protecting it too. And there's so many tools that you can do to really protect it from taxes, from litigation, from ambiguity. Like there's so many tools out there that you should be looking at that. And that involves an estate planning attorney or somebody or financial advisor, somebody there who has information and access to the tools that can help guide you. But that is an important second step. Earn the money, buy the assets, invest in stocks and bonds, but you have to look at how you're protecting that. And I think that's really great advice, because that's really what the wealthy do. They take the time to protect the downside, probably more than they do the upside. But I love that. So let's go to the second stage. Let's say you have all of your basics in place, your foundation. What advice do you have for the people that have like a little bit of extra money, that they are now have that foundation built? What's the next step for them?
Invest in things you're passionate about, whether it's philanthropy, and I believe the more you give, the more you get. Whether it's, you love real estate, get involved. Or if you're saying, you know what, I've been doing great in the market, like do what works. You don't have to recreate the wheel. There's plenty of ways to make your money grow. But truly, and Trisha, you said it perfectly, protect the downside.
And I love real estate. That's my baby. Like I'm not as much in the stock market as other people. And there's so much in the real estate world on how to protect things. I'm educating myself. So, but that's the important step, is to educate yourself on what you should do and what's out there. So, I know that we do need to start to wrap up. Before I do a couple things, let's talk taxes, because you referenced this idea that some people say you shouldn't live your life by taxes. You shouldn't make decisions based off taxes. Well, that's may not entirely be true. Let's talk about that a little more. What's your mindset on knowing what the tax laws and regulations are and how you use them or not use them in your decisions?
For me, it's very much a part of my calculation. And maybe it's because I wear this distorted, state attorney hat. But the fact is, if you have a big year and you know that you're going to be having a big year, and if you can live in a state in a COVID world where everyone's working from home, and just as a result of putting your butt in a different seat in a different Zoom channel, same Zoom channel, just, you happen to be in a house in a different state, that can save 13%, right? The highest income tax state is California. And if you go to Florida, where there's zero income, 13%. And let's say that year is $1 million year. It's a lot easier to save that $130,000 by just doing that one little maneuver than it is to go make another $130,000. So, a lot of people who are very wealthy, Patricia, they put their butts in Puerto Rico before the hurricane because there was a 4% effective tax rate, which is why all these hedge fund guys put shop there, and they're counting 183 days. So you have to be in the place 183 days to claim it's your residence, and you have to be legit about it. It can't just be like, I'm here to save the time. It has to be because you're actually like moving there. Your driver's license is now, you're really changing your residence. Your new friends are there. Your new community is there. It's not enough to just put your butt in a place. But look, if someone has the capacity to do it, I'll tell you, not even for a tax reason. Right now, I'm sitting in Colorado. It's cold. I don't like the cold. Bermuda, Barbados, and Cayman Islands have all come out with a 1-year residency for between $263, not $1,000, to $1,500. Excuse me. You could be sitting doing your digital nomad life on the beach in Bermuda or Cayman or Barbados. Not a bad life, And I really follow this advice in my life. You're not a tree, move. I always heard stories about, the birds, and it would be a New York day and the birds are still there, and people would be like, you know what? Why? The birds can just spread their wings and fly. Why do they stay here for the winter? Let's look at ourselves. Why are we grounding ourselves capturing ourselves in the life we've always known. Step into who you can be. Step into the reality of the new you and live the life that you want to live. It's not a dress rehearsal. We have one shot. Make it the best you can.
I love that. I always ask my husband, why the hell are we living in New Jersey?
I'll see you in Bermuda, baby.
I know. I want to go. What's the one? There's another Panama I hear is really great for
Panama's amazing.
retirees, and they have really great medical care. I was like, we should eye up a house there. Maybe we can.
100%. You know what? Thailand. Very little COVID. Great medical care. Massages all day. Freaking sign me up.
Sign me up too. Well, I love that you come on. I'm not going to let you go quite yet. I want to just wrap up with some resources. Tell me what you're reading. Are you a reader? Do you read fiction, nonfiction?
I read a lot of spiritual books because I believe we're all spiritual beings in a human, existence, but it's really a spiritual path. Right now, I'm reading The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. I know we all love her.
We love her.
Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza. And my kid ripped off the cover about Man's Search for Meaning. And then on my desk, I also have some of my books, The Millennial's Guide to the Universe, which is my first one. And you know what? Life is great. And it's just about let's keep on growing. People tell me how do you do this? How do you have time? You have 2 little kids. I mean, I'm alive. Oh, and there's Networked, our new book out there. All of you should go get it in case you haven't already. It's fantastic. I don't have it on my desk right now because my desk is a mess, but Networked. Look, we have so much opportunity to make shit happen. People stop themselves, and you know what? It's just like a sucky way to live. I was in that wheelchair at 15. That's not going to hold me back. Nothing's going to hold me back, and nothing's going to hold you back.
I love it. And just so you know, if you haven't also, Natalie released a Ruth Bader Ginsburg children's book. What's the name of that? I bought it and I don't have it with me right now. What's it
Or
called?
I Am Ruth.
It's beautiful. It's
Thank
beautifully written, beautifully illustrated. I highly recommend that you get it. I don't know. She's written 10 books, it seems. So go get it. But so let's tell people where they can find you for people who don't have their basics in place. Where can they find you?
I'm the managing attorney of Goldberg LLP. You can find us at www.goldbergllp. You can find me speaking on many different media circuits because, again, I just love spreading this wisdom, whether it be Fox or CNN, and I'm an equal opportunity offender. And you can find me on my LinkedIn, where actually I was blessed to meet these lovely ladies and has become a great community there. So if anyone's not on LinkedIn, get there because there's a lot of great things, both network and business to be had.
Well, I love it. Natalie, thank you so much. I'm going to have you back on and we're going to pick your brain on some more stuff because I think we didn't even scratch the surface. But thank you for coming on and imparting your wisdom. I super appreciate it. And thanks to everybody for listening. If you have not yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button, give us a rating, a like, a review. Really super appreciate it. And make sure you tune in next time. We will see you on the next episode of The Defense Never Rests.